Hello and welcome to the Voice of Iron. And in this session, I'll be reading and ranting about the Thunderbolt Heavy Battlemech. First, I'll go over the canon information that we are aware of through SARNA.net, and then I'll go over my personal thoughts on this chassis. Description: the Thunderbolt started production in 2491 as a planetary assault mech, and in fact was one of the heaviest mechs that could be produced at that time. Since then, the mech, known affectionately as the T-Bolt, or sometimes the Thud, has had its classification changed as larger mechs were built. Thanks to periodic updates, it is still feared and respected by many. With its varied arsenal, the Thunderbolt remains one of the best armed mechs, making it capable of serving in many roles. It is also an incredibly well-armored mech, rivaling or exceeding the amount of armor carried by some assault mechs. One downside to the Thunderbolt armament is poor heat management. The Thunderbolt is also noted for featuring an exceptionally roomy cockpit compared to that of the Atlas or Battlemaster. The original TDR-5S Thunderbolt was the first Battlemech of Earthworks Limited, as produced from their planet on Tikhonov. Despite the Confederation's relative inexperience with Battlemech technology, Earthworks' Thunderbolt was impressive. The T-Bolt set records in time between prototype and production, despite starting from scratch. The Thunderbolt's formidable performance caught the attention of the Confederation's neighbors, and made Earthworks a tremendous success. Within 15 years, Earthworks expanded anti-Spinward into the Free Worlds League, choosing Keystone as the location to produce their upgraded TDR-5S. Oliviet Weaponry on Sudeten also picked up the design following their formation. During the Succession Wars, this made House Steiner and House Merrick the largest users of Thunderbolts, although they were eager to sell the design to other successor states. Thus, Thunderbolts remained a traditionally Capellan mech too, at least until the Fourth Succession War and Endurian Wars. The Tarian Concordat was one of the largest users of the Thunderbolt in the periphery, thanks to both Vandenberg Mechanized Industries and Taurus Territorial Industries acquiring and producing the mech from their factories on Pinard and Taurus respectively, with many being sold to mercenary bands. Both Earthworks and Oliviet introduced new Thunderbolt variants using Lost Tech just before the Clan invasion, while the Taurian factories continued to churn out older models. When Sudeten was conquered by Clan Jade Falcon, the Oliviet factory was lost to the Inner Sphere, and though using outdated technology by Clan standards, it was still producing Thunderbolts into 3054. Several years later, Earthworks created an update to the aging Thunderbolt in the TDR-9M variant, but ran into trouble with Irian Battlemechs Unlimited. Irian had just recently introduced the Tempest as their replacement for the ancient mech, and lobbied the League Central Coordination and Command to put a stop to any new Thunderbolts. A legal fight was brewing up when the word of Blake stepped in and negotiated a compromise. The two designs would fight each other in a combat trial, with the winning design used to supply the Blakist military. The TDR-9M won, and starting in April 3067, the word of Blake began receiving their shipments of new Thunderbolts, followed shortly thereafter by the Free Worlds League military. Weapons and equipment. Because of its eclectic weapons mix, the Thunderbolt does not have just one primary weapon. Its longest range weapon is a Delta Dart LRM-15 missile launcher, mounted in the right torso, fed by a 2-ton reload bin in the center torso. Next in its long-range arsenal is a Sunglow Type 2 large laser mounted in the right arm, or Exostar large laser, which provides the Thunderbolt with respectable medium to long-range firepower. As ranges close, the Thunderbolt is able to bring its 3 diverse optics Type 18 medium lasers and a Baikal SRM-2 missile launcher, or Harvester SRM-2, into play. All 3 medium lasers are mounted in the left torso, while the SRM launcher and 1 ton of reloads are mounted in the right. Finally, for anti-infantry work, the Thunderbolt has two Volkers 200 machine guns, or Sperry Browning machine guns, with 1 ton of ammo in the left arm. While an impressive arsenal, the Achilles heel of the Thunderbolt is its miserly 15 heat sinks, which cannot cope with firing so many heat-intensive weapons. Thunderbolt pilots must take extra care to manage their heat levels, lest they shut down or cause their ammo to cook off, and many will prefer to fight within bodies of water to better cool off their mechs. Indeed, most commanders will order their Thunderbolts into a water hole at the outset of a battle so that they may fire their weapons more rapidly than normal. The 13 tons of armor protecting the Thunderbolt, although no longer the most carried on a mech, is still impressive given the fact many current assault models sport less protection than this ancient design. The 13.5-ton fusion engine powering the Thunderbolt gives it a maximum speed of 64.8 kilometers per hour. Variants. The TDR-1C. This was the original Thunderbolt design, produced in 2491 by Earthworks Limited, built with primitive technology, until the introduction of the modern TDR-5S in 2505. The engine, armor, and cockpit were all early generation systems, less effective than later technology. As a result, the original Thunderbolt had a top speed of 54 kilometers per hour and had to devote more weight to armor. Given its designed role as an assault mech, this slow speed wasn't seen as a problem. Interestingly, the weapons mix was the same as on the later TDR-5S that would appear on Succession Wars battlefields. The TDR-5D. Introduced in 2821, the 5D is a radical departure from the 5S. All short-range weapons are replaced by an autocannon 20 in the right torso supplied by 2 tons of ammunition. The left torso mounts an LRM-10 with 1 ton of ammunition, and 14 heat sinks keep the mech ice cold. The TDR-5L. The so-called Lost Thunderbolt, the 5L was a downgraded version of the Royal 5SB Thunderbolt, developed by Earthworks Tikhonov in 3828. Built on a more basic standard chassis, the now lost tech ER-PPC was swapped for a Diverse Optics Sunbeam ER large laser, but most of the 5SB systems were preserved with only the loss of 1 double heatsink and the head-mounted small laser. Production of the design only lasted a mere 27 years before further technology decline resulted in the 5LS. Speaking of, the TDR-5LS. Developed in 2850 as the Second Succession War saw more and more technologies disappear, the 5LS was a downgrade field refit and a factory model of the now impossible-to-build 5L. While the ER large laser and Starfish small pulse lasers were retained, the standard LRM-15 and Baikal SRM-2 rack were noticeably less accurate than the 5L's more advanced launchers, but nothing compared to the replacement of the 5L's double heat sinks with 15 standard models and the heat management issues that resulted. Production of even the primitive 5LS would end during the Third Succession War. The TDR-5SB. This SLDF Royal variant of the Thunderbolt was introduced in 2753 and uses Star League technology. An endosteel chassis provides more space for an updated weapon mix. The LRM launcher receives an Artemis 4 fire control system, while the SRM is replaced by a Streak SRM-2 launcher. Missile ammunition is protected by case. The large laser is replaced by an ER-PPC, and a pair of small pulse lasers replaces the machine guns. The medium lasers remain in place. 14 double heat sinks keep the mech warrior comfortable. And the TDR-5SB2, which was an early Royal variant. Everything else is the same as the 5SB, except it had a standard PPC. The TDR-5SD. This Star League-era Federated Suns refit of the Thunderbolt removes the LRM-15, machine guns, and their ammunition and replaces them with an Ultra AC-5 with 2 tons of ammunition. For close-in work, an extra medium laser is added and the large laser is traded for a large pulse laser. It upgrades the heat sinks to 12 double-strength models. How many of these variants survive past the Star League era is unknown. The TDR-5SE. The 5SE variant of the Thunderbolt was introduced in 3000 for use by the Iridani Light Horse Mercenary Unit as a raider and reconnaissance mech, modified for mobility. This variant has had its SRM-2 launcher and the machine guns removed and the LRM-15 downgraded to an LRM-10 in order to add 4 jump jets, giving the mech a jumping distance of 120 meters. The mech has also had 2 heat sinks added to help dissipate its heat load better. The TDR-5SS. The 5SS Thunderbolt is a Steiner variant introduced in 3930 that depends on more direct long-range fire instead of missiles. The mech carries a Kraus PPC as its primary weapon in its right arm, replaces the LRM launcher for an SRM-6, and removes the SRM-2 to make room for a Zippo Mark 9 flamer in the right torso. To help with the mech's added heat load, the 5SS variant has 21 heatsinks. The TDR-7M. Upgraded with Star League technology in 3049 by Earthworks Incorporated, the 7M has been re-armored using ferrofibrous armor, reducing the weight of the armor to 11.5 tons while maintaining the same level of protection. The saved weight has allowed the mech's weapons to be upgraded as well, with an arsenal based on the 5S model. The 7M carries an LRM-15 missile launcher in the right torso, a diverse optics Sunbeam ER large laser in the right arm, 3 medium lasers, and a Hovertech Streak SRM-2 launcher in the left torso, and a pair of machine guns in the left arm. 2 tons of LRM reloads are kept in the right torso, while 1 ton each of Streak and machine gun ammo are kept in the left torso. Additionally, the heat sinks have been upgraded to double heat sinks, and case has been added to protect against ammunition explosion. The TDR-7S. Introduced in 3091 at Trelscher Heavy Industries, the Thunderbolt returned to the successful design paradigm of missiles and lasers supported by heavy armor. A heavy-duty gyro improved battlefield longevity. 13 tons of armor protect the mech. An ER large laser, LRM-15, and SRM-2 are present, but the 3 medium lasers have been replaced by extended range versions. A pair of small X-pulse lasers in the left arm provide anti-infantry capability. 2 tons of LRM ammunition and a ton of SRM ammunition are stored in the left torso in a Case 2 protected bay. The TDR-7SE. The 7SE variant, introduced in 3067, takes the upgrade of the Thunderbolt even further. The structure has been redesigned to use an endo-steel structure, and the mech also uses ferrofibrous armor and double heatsinks to further save weight. The saved weight has been used to focus the role of the 7SE into a long-range mech. The mech's maneuverability has been enhanced with 4 jump jets for a jumping distance of 120 meters, while the primary weapon is a Gauss rifle. This is backed up by 3 medium pulse lasers in the torso, with a 4th mounted on the left arm, and finally, the 7SE carries a Guardian ECM suite to protect against advanced enemy electronics. The TDR-8M. Released by Earthworks in 3058 in the wake of Operation Guerrero, the TDR-8M was the first model to feature the visual facelift common to Thunderbolts produced from the mid-3060s through the end of the Jihad. Based on the TDR-7M, the 8M drops the machine guns, Streak SRM-2, their associated ammunition, and the right torso case in order to mount 4 jump jets in the legs. Although the traditional 3 medium lasers are upgraded to new extended range models, an additional double heatsink in the left torso helps to offset the greater thermal stress. The TDR-9M. The 9M was Earthworks' attempt in 3067 to rebuild the Thunderbolt for the modern era, modifying it to excel at long-range combat. The mech is built using an endo-steel chassis and has 12.5 tons of armor. Using angled and sloped Star Shield A armor to further increase protection, the mech has excellent maneuverability with 4 jump jets, further enhanced with flight stabilizers built into the design. The mech's primary weapon is an Imperator automatic light Gauss rifle mounted in the right arm. This is supported for long-range combat with a Delta Dart LRM-15 launcher in the right torso and 3 diverse optics ER medium lasers in the left torso for close combat situations. 1 ton of Gauss slugs and 2 tons of LRM reloads are protected by case in the right torso. Finally, the cockpit itself was changed based on feedback from a number of Thunderbolt pilots who felt they were sitting out in front of the mech. The more open cockpit of the 9M was moved over to the left torso, which also helps protect the pilot from flying shrapnel in case the Gauss rifle explodes. The TDR-9NR. This field expedient refit emerged during the Jihad in 3072. It uses an experimental Bloodhound active probe to find enemy forces, a Guardian ECM suite to blind them, and a light PPC, large VSP laser, 3 ER medium lasers, and a Streak SRM-6 to destroy them. 2 leg-mounted B-pods prevent battle armor infantry from getting too close, and a C3 Slave allows the T-Bolt to coordinate its fire. The TDR-NAIS. Using some of the newest technology available in the Federated Suns, the 9NAIS was built in 3067 by NAIS on an endo-steel structure and utilizes an XL engine for power, giving it a ground speed of 86.4 kilometers per hour. The mech is armored with 12 tons of armor for protection and has an entirely updated weapons payload. The primary weapon is a rotary autocannon 5, which can fire at 6 times the normal rate of fire. Supporting it are 3 ER medium lasers and a Streak SRM-6. The lasers and rotary autocannon are linked to an advanced targeting computer. Finally, for added protection against enemy electronics, the mech has a Guardian ECM suite. The TDR-9S. Based on the older 5SS model, the 9S was built in 3050 by Olivetti Weaponry using off-the-shelf structural components and armor after extensive changes delayed production. The mech is armed with a Defiance 1001 ERPPC in its right arm as its primary long-range firepower. This is supported at closer ranges by a Thar-Hess Maxi SRM-6 in the left torso, along with the original 3 medium lasers. While retaining the left arm machine guns, in the right torso it carries a pair of Zippo flamers and a Surefire 444 anti-missile system, along with 1 ton of AMS ammo. The TDR-9SE. The 9SE variant of the Thunderbolt was introduced in 3050 as the Iridani Light Horse's update to the 5SE, based primarily around an energy weapons arsenal and maneuverability. The mech is armed with a Magna Longbow 10 LRM-10 missile launcher for long-range combat. For close to medium ranges, the mech carries a Thunderbolt 12 large pulse laser and 3 diverse optics Type 18 medium lasers. Of note is the shifting of the missile launcher and its 1 ton of reloads from the right torso to the left. The additional mobility of the 9SE comes from its 4 Hildco Model 12 jump jets, originally manufactured in the St. Ives compact, giving it a jumping distance of 120 meters. The TDR-9T. This 3083 variant uses an XL engine to push its top speed to 96 kilometers per hour. It uses an LRM-10, a pair of light PPCs, and 3 ER medium lasers. An endo-steel skeleton provides the weight savings needed to install these weapons and engine. The TDR-9W. This variant was built by Blackwell Industries for Wolf's Dragoons, and it was based on a configuration from the Golden Century. 4 jump jets let it cover 120 meters per jump. 15 double heat sinks dissipate the heat from various clan-spec weapons. The right arm carries a clan-spec large pulse laser. The 3 torso-mounted lasers are clan-spec medium pulse lasers, and the LRM-10 is also clan-spec and equipped with an Artemis 4 FCS. 2 tons of LRM ammo are carried in the left torso in a case-protected bin. 12 tons of inner sphere spec ferrofibrous armor provides maximum protection. The TDR-10M. This 3082 variant uses an endo-steel chassis and maximizes the amount of armor protection available. It relies on various PPCs for its main weaponry, mounting a heavy PPC, light PPC, and snub-nose PPC on the same chassis. The LRM and SRM systems have been replaced by a single MML-5, and an ER medium laser completes the weapon's loadout. A light fusion engine allows the 10M to reach a top speed of 64 km per hour, and 4 jump jets allow this T-bolt to move through light terrain. The TDR-10S. This Dark Age era variant carries an ER large laser and ER PPC in its arms for long-range sniping, while 14 double heatsinks provide enough cooling to fire these weapons on the move. An LRM-15, with 16 salvos, supports the direct fire weapons, while 3 ER medium lasers come into play at 360 meters. It uses a light fusion engine to provide power, and carries 4 jump jets. An endo-steel chassis frees weight for case, equipment, and weaponry. The TDR-10SE. Introduced in 3067, the 10SE is built around new technologies. The mech has an endo-steel chassis and is armored with 12.5 tons of armor. The use of mask gives it superior maneuverability, capable of bursts of speed up to 86.4 km per hour, and 4 jump jets gives it a jumping capability of 120 meters. Finally, the mech's arsenal includes an ER PPC and 3 ER medium lasers, which are linked to a targeting computer and an LRM-10 launcher. The mech uses a Guardian ECM suite to help defend against advanced enemy targeting and communication systems. The TDR-11S. Developed during the Dark Age as an updated 9S, this variant carries 2 machine guns in the left arm and 2 more in the right torso. An anti-missile system is carried in the right torso. 3 ER medium lasers are mounted in the left torso, and this is supplemented by an SRM-6. Main firepower comes from an ER PPC in the right arm. 15 double heatsinks are fitted, and a heavy-duty gyro is also present. The TDR-11SE. A newer variant of the Thunderbolt, first built in 3069, the 11SE uses some of the newest technologies available in the Inner Sphere, thanks to the modern Earthworks facilities on Keystone. The mech is armed with a new Series Arms Thrasher Snub-Nose PPC that is excellent for close-range combat, with a short range of 270 meters, and has an effective range out to 450 meters. The mech also has a Doombud MML-7 launcher, which is capable of firing both LRM and SRM ammunition. For close combat, the 11SE has 3 diverse optics ER medium lasers. This variant has added mobility by adding improved jump jets that allow it to jump up to 180 meters. The lasers and PPCs are linked to an advanced targeting computer, and the mech has a Guardian ECM suite to defend it against enemy electronic warfare systems. The TDR-12R. This variant, built on Tikhonov and used by the Republic of the Sphere, is intended to anchor and support vehicle formations. With a top speed of 54 km per hour, it won't break any speed records, but can keep up with most battle armor and combat vehicle formations. The standard armor is replaced by reflective armor, and ammunition has been stored in a Case 2 protected bay. The right arm carries a plasma rifle, while the right torso carries a pair of Thunderbolt 5 launchers. The left torso is equipped with a clan-spec LRM-15, and the traditional medium lasers of the left torso have been replaced by 3 small variable speed pulse lasers. The left arm carries a pair of standard medium lasers. 12 double heatsinks handle the heat load. The TDR-17S. This 3070 refit uses an endo-steel internal structure and 11.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor. These weight savings allow the design to use a compact engine and heavy-duty gyro. Offensively, the ER-PPC provides long-range damage, while 4 medium pulse lasers deal accurate damage up close. These weapons can overwhelm the 10 double heatsinks, so triple-strength Myomer is included to help speed the mech up. It also uses 4 jump jets for added maneuverability, and a Guardian ECM suite which wreaks havoc on enemy electronics. The TDR-60RLA. Apparently a variant of the 9NAIS, the 60RLA was first spotted in 3072 and adds enough jump jets to vault up to 150 meters at a time. Like the 17S, the RLA also uses 11.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor and triple-strength myomer. Both arms have hands and lack weapons, but are able to take off an enemy's head with the TSM activated. In order to build up this heat, it mounts a pair of snub-nosed PPCs, 3 ER medium lasers, 2 medium pulse lasers, 2 small lasers, and a small pulse laser. 12 double heat sinks dissipate some of the heat these weapons build. The Thunderbolt C. This is a field refit created by the clans during Operation Revival. Captured Inner Sphere Thunderbolts were refitted and used by Garrison and Solama troops. The Thunderbolt C has a large pulse laser in the right arm, an ER large laser in the left torso, and the left arm carried an ER medium laser and a pair of ER small lasers. 24 single heat sinks are fitted to the legs and all the torsos. Early descriptions of this variant did not have the additional heat sinks, making them severely underweight. And finally, the Thunderbolt C2. This variant was developed by Clan Jade Falcon after they recaptured Sudeten. Based on the Thunderbolt C, this model has an ER PPC in the right arm, while the left arm carries an ER medium laser and a pair of ER small lasers. The left torso carries a Streak SRM-6, 3 ER medium lasers, and a ton of Streak ammunition. The right torso carries 2 small pulse lasers and an anti-missile system with a ton of ammunition. To make room for this equipment, the 24 heat sinks have been replaced by 17 double heat sinks. Now, that is one of the largest numbers of official record sheet variants I have seen to date. But nonetheless, just like many mechs, they come with their own design quirks. The Thunderbolt and variants, unless specified otherwise, all have the following design quirks. They're multi-track, they're rugged, and they're ubiquitous. All pretty good stuff. The TDR-1C Thunderbolt, however, had its own series of design quirks. It was, unfortunately, difficult to maintain, still multi-track, but it did have poor workmanship, and as of 2509, it was considered obsolete. It should be noted that there are 2 other designs that are spin-offs of this of sorts. The Gotterdammerung, which was a Lyran Commonwealth variant of a mech intended to replace the Thunderbolt, featuring heavy ferrofibrous armor and a torso-mounted cockpit, and of course, the Thunderbolt 2C, which was a Jade Falcon post-Jihad revision of the Thunderbolt. And now, after all of that, personal notes. Now, you may be wondering, after that enormous list of Thunderbolts, after that massive grouping of variants and history, what would I prefer? What is my favorite variant of the Thunderbolt to drive? Believe it or not, it is the TDR-5S. Again, this thing has a large laser, an LRM-15, 3 mediums, an SRM-2, and 2 machine guns. And I'm not gonna lie, the first time I ever actually laid eyes on that layout, I thought, why? It seemed so unfocused. I was never a huge fan of machine guns, and the SRM-2 was something that I kind of looked at a little sideways. After all, one of my favorite light mechs of all time, the Commando, had at least an SRM-4 in most of its variants, if not an SRM-6. So I looked at that SRM-2 and thought, isn't that just a little superfluous? Maybe I could add some more heat sinks or something? But, in the interest of fairness and wanting to make sure that I actually got the full experience, I took out the TDR-5S stock. Didn't change anything, didn't mess around with the internals, and I took it on a couple missions. I believe Defense Mission was the first one that I took this out for. It was glorious. I could engage enemies at pretty much any range that I wanted. I could look at them at a distance and fire off the LRM-15. As soon as they got just a little closer, the large laser came into play, and if they ever dared to run right up to me, especially those little light mechs, 3 medium lasers and the machine guns made short work of them, while the SRM-2 helped to crit-seek anything that I had already stripped off, or at the very least heavily damaged. All of this was useful, and more importantly, all of this was useful in a progressive manner. They say that one of the biggest weaknesses of this thing is its heat management. Well, yeah, sure, if you're alpha striking, which might have been a problem for younger me back in my MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries days, but in MechWarrior 5, I just linked all of the different weapon groups to different groupings. I think I had 4 separate groups: my long range, my medium range, my short range, and then the SRM2 was its own little pod, just in case I wanted to add that extra kick. And it worked so well. This thing could take a beating from all sorts of mechs while at the same time dishing out consistent damage across all ranges. I could effectively stand in the back line and just be fire support with the Lerm 15 and the large laser, or I could run right into the thick of battle with a pretty decent speed and start messing up everybody with the machine guns and the lasers and the SRM, or I could just punch somebody in the face and it still does a lot of damage. If a light mech runs up to me, I can punch this thing in between machine gun fire and it will melt. It's beautiful. So, did I mess with this thing? Did I decide to make any modifications after driving this? I think for the first time in all of my personal notes, I didn't make a custom variant of this. That doesn't mean that I won't in the future, but honestly, I like the 5S. This thing's good as it is. I mean, again, something to engage at all ranges, tough enough to handle just about anything, fast enough to keep up with most of a standard squad minus any lights. I mean, this thing is beautiful. The Thunderbolt is an amazing machine. A particular story that I've considered telling as its own side story here, but I'll give the brief version here, is I was doing a very complicated raid mission. It was a long campaign in MechWarrior 5, and it all culminated in an assault alongside some allies on this dude's personal base. And it was a massive amount of mechs, a massive amount of defenses, air and land defenses, and of course you had to run into his base, grab some components, and at the same time fend off everything. And it all ended with his personal King Crab and his entourage of mixed assault and heavy mechs. It was insane. And of course, I wanted to go into this guns blazing with my best mech, so the first time I went out, if I remember correctly, I actually took out my Atlas, because I thought, okay, I'm gonna need it. AS7D if it matters, although I modified the heck out of the thing, so I don't know if it's stock, or if you can call it that. Well, I died. I failed that mission badly. I was too slow and got picked apart eventually. Okay, I went in with the Stalker. Slower, but I could attack them from longer ranges with no problem. That didn't go over well either. The Stalker was, again, kind of left out by itself, and as my allies were picked off one by one, I was effectively left to clean up the remains. It got to the point where I had 2 ammo explosions and a single large laser left, and there was still an entire lance of enemy mechs coming. And while I had some allies with me, from the mission, there was no way I was winning. I did try my best just to see if I could clutch it, but nope. Eventually that large laser was popped and I was taken out from behind a couple of good shots as something ran around me and blew the back armor apart. But then I went in with the Thunderbolt. Now, obviously I had just gone in with 2 full assault mechs and I was like, I got stripped. And it's not like the AS-7D was too much slower than the Thunderbolt, right? So what could I possibly do with this thing that I couldn't do with the rest? Turns out, a lot. Again, that ability to vary my range while having the speed to be able to keep up with most allied forces and still, make a difference really, really mattered. I was blown away. I was able to complete this mission not only alive, but most of my allies lived as well. I was fast enough to get up on the ridge and take out artillery, while also being able to have the long-range option of taking out enemy aircraft, and the short-range option of shooting any mechs that were foolish enough to get up close. I had a good view of the battlefield, so I was able to order my allies about to take care of any threats, and of course if anything came up to me, I had the armor to tank it, and the weapons payload to continuously fire, especially with those machine guns, until they were gone. The moral of the story is, I I highly underestimated the Thunderbolt. I knew that mech warriors liked it, and I knew that technically, from some meta level, it was a very, very good mech, but up until I actually sat in the cockpit of one and ran a couple missions, I never understood the appeal, and I never understood why. But man, this is a monster. I now love the Thunderbolt. And whenever I get the chance to get my hands on one in any playthrough of MechWarrior 5 or any tabletop campaign that calls for it, you can bet that I'll probably be taking one. This is phenomenal. I'd end this little personal note section with my usual recommendation that you get one, but chances are you all probably knew to get this thing first and foremost before I did. But if you didn't, yes, take this thing out. This isn't like me recommending to try the Flea for a challenge, and this isn't me recommending to try the Locust because it's a fun light mech. This is me recommending to take the Thunderbolt if you want to feel like an absolute beast on the battlefield. Because in the Thunderbolt, you will be. Anyway, that concludes today's Reading and Rant. And as always, thank you for listening to my voice.